Psychology training presented to you by Yuva. I am Rudraksh, your mentor for this training. We have already learned about the basics of the subject. In this video, we will learn about how to think like psychologists. I am assuming that everyone joining this video want to be a psychologist in future. So this video will help you to think like a psychologist. Thank you and let's start with today's session. Okay, so let's start with our today's topic, which is how to think like a psychologist. I am assuming that everyone watching this video or attached to this program want to be a psychologist. Some way or other, in another field, might be the field can be different. It can be organizational, it can be clinical, it can be industrial, sports, but everyone want to be a psychologist. I am assuming it. So how you will become a psychologist? There is a procedure, there is a theoretical procedure where there is degree program attached to it. You have to follow some degree program and you have to achieve all the license which are required to practice as a psychologist in India. But other than that, what if you have all the certification? That does that mean that you will be a great psychologist? You should have the great skills a psychologist should possess. Psychologist, anything attached or associated with psychologist, any skill associated with psychologist, you have to understand that skill. You have to develop, grind that skill within you. So understand how psychologists think. What we can do is we cannot practice all the skills attached to psychologists just now. It required time, it required theoretical knowledge, it required practical knowledge, it required exposure. But what can you do without any exposure to the field itself? What you can do without any exposure to the clients or any exposure to the medical conditions or disorders? What you can do? You can understand the thought process of a psychologist. You can understand how a psychologist think. So how a psychologist think is really simple, yet crucial and critical, and we can say complicated also. So simple and complicated how? It is simple as we see is it is simple to understand how a psychologist think. It is simple to know the process of thinking, the steps of thinking, the we can say the criteria of thinking like a psychologist is really simple. But the practice, to practice it and to develop the skill to practice in a certain way to think like psychologist is really complicated. So the process seems simple, but to practice it, to apply it, and to grasp it, to like develop that skill, to develop that thinking, it is difficult to develop a thinking like a psychologist. But it is easy to understand how a psychologist think. So now let's do the easy part. We understand how psychologists think, and then you do the complicated part where you understand the thing and you try to develop that skill in your own. Because at this young age, you can, if you can think critically and if you can think like a psychologist, you won't be a psychologist. You cannot be or you might not be a good psychologist, but you will be a great human being, a great father, a great mother, a great child, a great brother. Every society, whatever the society need, you will be great in it. So now understand what are the basics of thinking procedure of a psychologist. So what psychologists do is, psychologists don't do a lot of things, but what psychology majorly do is, while thinking, psychologists avoid biases, think critically, and the last but not the least, that is he think scientifically also. Okay, every psychologist is attached to the subject which is psychology. We know what psychology is. What psychology do? Psychology study human behavior. And what are the goals of psychology? We already studied that the goals of psychology is to describe, understand, control and predict. Okay, describe, understand, predict and control, it doesn't matter. So these are the goals of psychology. How and who will achieve these goals? Who have all the responsibility and who is responsible to achieve that goal? Who should keep all the goals of psychology in mind? Anyone attached to the subject. If you are attached to the subject psychology, all the goals associated to psychology, you should fulfill all the goals, all the requirements which are there for subject. So all the goals are associated with psychology. All the goals have to achieved by a psychologist. So psychologist thinking should be toward the goal. Like how to think like psychologist, we have to understand the goals first, then we have to understand the thinking procedure. Avoid biases. What do you mean by biases? Biases where we differentiate something, where we look to any stereotype and believe in it, where we believe someone blindly and trust it, and we favoring it. Okay, so wherever we are not judging, or we are not evaluating, I won't say the word judging is not correct, but if we are not evaluating and we are judging before evaluating, this is our bias. Okay, what we have to avoid, we have to avoid judging before evaluating. We have to first evaluate and then judge, है ना. Still there should be a pause and there should be a space to think again before delivering anything. Okay, if we are delivering anything, we are psychologists, we have aim and goals that we have to understand first, we have to describe it, we have to tell when it will happen, and we have to somewhere develop a theory also. Somewhere, who are developing all the theories? Psychologists are developing all the theories. So how to develop a theory? We have to think critically and we have to think scientifically. So we have to understand the procedure and we have to understand all the concepts associated to the subject. So first, let's understand what are the goals. We know what are the goals. Now let's understand what is biases. We know what biases is. Now let's understand what is critical thinking. Critical thinking is to think critically. Okay, this is the only thing related to critical thinking. How to practice critical thinking will study in the next part of the video, in the later part of the video. But now first start with avoiding biases. How to avoid biases? What are biases? First, we know that there is an affinity bias, where what we do, we feel connection towards the people who are like us. If you are looking to a person, if the religion match, if the society match, if the language is there, if you speak same language, if consider if you are in Bangalore and you don't know Kannada, but you know your native language, and you meet someone with native language and you have to offer a ride, two person, one who speak Kannada and one who is like, who have your same dialect. You will offer the seat, you will offer the ride to the person with same dialect. This is our bias. Might possible the another person is going for a long journey and the another person is coming from a long way and he need a ride, he need a good ride. So but what we did is we judge and we decided before evaluating. So this is affinity bias. Next bias is perception bias. We already have a lot of stereotype attached to some caste, to some religion, to some societal caste. We can say caste only, and we can also say that to some countries we have stereotype. Okay, we discriminate somewhere. We discriminate with people. We discriminate with someone from our other societies. We discriminate in caste basis. So we are not prone to do this, but we do it unconsciously sometimes. If I say I hate this country, okay, I hate the flag of this country, okay, I hate that country, okay, I hate the people of that country, I hate everyone in that country. You visualize or you imagine or you know what country, which country I am talking about. Okay, might possible because there what I am talking about, but it is your perception. I am not talking about any country. I am just saying something with a blanket. Okay, I haven't said any complete sentence, but you understand why, because you have somewhere you have a stereotype toward any country and you fill that gap that we are talking about that country. Okay, so this is how we know perception bias is there. We already perceived that country as a wrong country. We already perceived that caste as a humiliating caste or anything. We know that caste is aggressive, that caste is poor, that caste is usually rich. So these all are the perspective where we just see caste or anything, any ethnicity we see, and we assume that the person or the person associated with that caste or that society is like this only. Now third bias which which is a theoretical process, which is also a theory, halo effect. Okay, it is a concept of psychology. Consider you are a hiring manager of some any type of company where you have to hire a person. You see that one person is really fair, he is like well groomed, he is wearing nice pair of dress, he is wearing like he is good looking, he is just a sophisticated and good looking person. Another person comparatively is not good looking and is not somewhere match that level of the another person. So there are person A who is good looking, there's person B who is not good looking. So I'm not saying that we should do it, but I'm saying that how people are discriminating in looks also. There is a concept halo effect where we consider the person who according to us, listen, first thing I have to clear that beauty standards are different for everyone. So I am not saying someone beautiful or handsome and someone ugly. I am just saying that some person look good, another person is not looking good according to the perception of person who is looking to that person. According to my perception, if some person is not good looking and another person is ugly, I can perceive that he is ugly. So what happen is we see that person, we consider the person who is good looking as more intelligent and more skilled before testing. Okay, before testing all the employee, we assume that this person might be confident, this person look confident, he is must have good skills, he must be really great for our country, he must be intelligent only. So this is halo effect where we judge a person just by his look. Okay, judging a book by its cover. So we project positive qualities onto people without actually knowing them. We don't know that any employee, we don't know the A person, we don't know the B person, but we are assuming that A person is good looking and A person is what positive, there is some positive qualities in that A person. So that is what happened in halo effect. Okay, it happened unconsciously, somewhere it happened consciously too. Okay, now the fourth one, which is confirmation bias. You guys are raised in a society, you guys are raised in a family. Okay, you have a lot of beliefs which could be rational, which could be irrational, which could be logical, illogical, a lot of type of beliefs you guys have. So all the beliefs, what you do is you seek for the confirmation, that someone confirm that your opinion, your pre-existing idea, someone confirm that. If you think that that kind of people, that race of people is so angry, that it is so impulsive, and someone say yeah, it is really angry, I know that person, or if he is sharing an incident where he say I met a person with that ethnicity, with that race, and that person was so aggressive and so impulsive toward his family, I don't like that person. So what is happening, the person is just sharing a story where he is talking about a person, anyone could be impulsive, but he said a race, he said that ethnicity the person belongs to. So you understand and you confirm your bias that already built in your mind, the pre-existing idea of that race to be aggressive, that is confirmed now. So by just taking that as a positive incentive, you develop a theory that that person and that race is impulsive and that race is not good. So this is how confirmation bias work. So this is up for confirmation and biases which are there. So you have to avoid that biases, you have to develop a thinking process where you can bias. How you can process it? You cannot should not take anyone's side when there is any type of conflict or dispute where you are the one to decide whose side should you choose. So you first evaluate, then you judge, and then you decide. So what we should not do, we should not judge or decide before evaluating. So to basic process and the simple way to avoid biases is to evaluate before any judgment. Okay, so this is the simplest thing, and now let's do the complicated thing. You understand that thing, what is how to practice it daily, you will develop a good sense to avoid biases. Now the second thing we said is critical thinking. What critical thinking is, there are 4 phrases just you have to remember all the time when you think, which will develop a sense of critical thinking, which develop a skill of thinking critically in your mind. First is, few truth transcend the need of empirical testing. I always say that truth is trust. Okay, everything which is true, we trust it. Whatever you are trusting, do not believe it as truth. Truth should be trustful. Trust should be truth. This we know. But if you are trusting someone, does not mean because you haven't evaluated it. If you haven't evaluated any person and you are anything and you are trusting it, then it is not a critical thing. You have to first evaluate. So some truth we have to do empirical testing to it. You know that a baby cry, why? Because that person is having a baby is crying because of this thing. Have you evaluated that thing? Have you studied any theory attached to it? You haven't studied any theory attached to it. So first learn research Okay, learn that theory, learn the researches associated to it, go through it, understand, empirically test what you think, what you believe, empirical test your thought, then you should pass any judgment. So few truth, anything you trust, anything you want to, you already know, you should empirically test it. Empirically, how we empirically test it, we'll discuss in scientific thinking how to empirically test. The next is judging of quality of evidence is crucial. You just know that baby cry, why you have a thought, you have a thought process, you have a truth that baby cry because of this thing, and you just google it and you open the first thing and you are like, oh, baby cry because of the, you'll see this website is confirming my thing on the my idea, my pre-existing idea is confirmed by, you are what you are doing, you are like in the trap of confirmation bias now. So judging the quality of evidence is true. What is that website, who is the owner of and who is the author of that content? Okay, whatever blog you are reading, who have like written it, you have to know. So you have to check for the quality of evidences also. If you are talking about rational belief, irrational belief, if you are talking about therapies like rational emotive behavior therapy, okay, let's consider rational emotive behavior therapy. So anyone can say that this type of therapy do this thing, this type of therapy do this thing, this type of therapy do this thing, but you know who developed REBT? First, know who developed REBT. Search for the articles where that person who developed the REBT said anything about REBT, because the credibility and the quality of evidence is crucial. So the quality of evidences we are getting is super rich. Okay, so we understand that whatever the thing we have heard about this thing, or whatever the thing I have written in this PDF or written in this file is true. Why? Because it is, the quality of evidence is really rich. So you should always look for a good quality of evidences. Now the third line, authority or claim expertise does not automatically make an idea true. Just because I am saying it, you should not trust me. Might be there is process, might be there are videos where I said something which is not correct. Have you checked me? Have you checked on my content? Have you rechecked the content? No. So there might be possibility that whatever I am saying, there is a fault in it, because a person can make mistake any day. So if I have made any mistake, but what you did is you assume that because I am saying and I am a mentor of your video, so you understand that it is true. My mentor said it, my teacher said it, my father said it, okay, president said it. Authority, because they are on authority, we understand and we think that that person is true. But as a psychologist, there will be instances where you have to judge between parent and father. Father is the authority. Okay, father is paying you the money. Okay, father is paying for the therapy process, and there is a problematic situation between father and son. What you have to do is you have to think critically. That person is in authority does not mean that he do not have any type of faulty behavior. You have to look for it. So authority or claimed expertise does not automatically make an idea true. And the last thing to think critically is to critical thinking required an open mind. Why I said it? Because you have to avoid biases. So to avoid biases, you should have an open mind where you can unlearn the thing which are there, unlearn and let go the ideas, your pre-existing ideas. Somewhere you have to let go the pre-existing ideas. You have to deal with your stereotypes. You have to deal with your beliefs. So what you required? You required an open mind. What an open mind is? Open mind is a mind with open doors, where a thing which is required can come and which is not required can go. This is the thing we say about open mind. So a psychologist should think critically. Now you know how to think critically, so practice it. Start practicing it, because we also already know that knowing how psychologists think is simple, but practicing is complicated. Now, as we said that a psychologist should understand, predict, and what are the behavior, what is the behavior. A psychologist should also think scientifically, because at a point in his life, psychologist will develop a research. Psychologist will look into matter and develop a research that this kind of research is there. We should understand this theory. We should develop a theory. Psychologist will develop a theory surely. So thinking scientifically is really required, and because it provide foundation for the research work. If we are like, we surely will proceed to the research part and will study how to research, but first we should learn how to think scientifically, because it is the sound foundation for all type of researches. Okay, first thing is making observation. A psychologist should have great observation skills. You should observe everything going around you. You should observe your father, you should observe your mother, you should observe your brother, you should observe your servant, you should observe your dog also. Why? Because we are practicing observation, you can observe anything. Okay, you should know who is leaving the office, who is coming in the office, who is leaving the house, who is coming in the house, what type of sound someone create, what type of what is the pitch of that person, what is the impulsivity of the person. You should know, you should observe it. Second thing, if you consider, if you observe any problem in that behavior, while observing something you will come across some few problems, so you have to define that problem, what it is. There is problem associated with the impulsivity, there is problem associated with the work environment, there is problem associated between the relation. So you have to understand the problem and define the problem in crucial work. When you define the problem, that there is if you consider that there is somewhere there is a problematic situation between mother and father, or between any couple, and you assume that the but father is so impulsive and mother is not impulsive, but mother is so emotional. So you identified a pattern, you identify a problem, you define the problem. Now you can assume, you can make assumption that there is problem. Why? Because mother is extra emotional and father is extra impulsive. So what we have to control is, we have to control father impulsivity and we have to control mother's emotionality, and we have to increase the emotional quotient of the mother. We understand this, but before approaching it and before getting to the result, first we have to propose a hypothesis where we assume that mother and father are having a problem because of the difference in the level of impulsivity and emotionality between them. We have proposed a hypothesis. Now we should gather evidences. How we will gather evidences? In this case, we'll interview both of them. We'll interview all the instances they had, where they had a hot talk, where they have some type of argument. We explore it and we'll see what is your impulsivity level. We check the impulsivity level of the both, they using some psychological test. We test both the emotional quotient of the both the person. We check the result, we find correlation, we find difference. Okay, we understand the difference between both impulsivity and emotionality. So we are checking it. Now we have evidence to it. Now we can our assumption, we can check our assumption, we can check our hypothesis. If the evidences we got support our hypothesis, we retain that hypothesis. But if that evidence do not somewhere accept it or clarify our assumption, we should reject that hypothesis and leave it there. We can say that there might be some problematic situation where we could not observe, and we haven't observed this completely, so we should reject. But anyway, if the evidences are not appropriate and they are not have a rich quality, we should reject the hypothesis. Now if we accept the hypothesis, we know what is that, we understand the human behavior, we can publish and we can say and we can declare it. Okay, we can declare it that this type of fighting is happening in between you guys because of this problem. You can, if you counter this and if you control this problem will get solved. Now you have published result and now you have built a theory. Okay, now you have built a theory that this happen in this time, but the theory is attached to the only that couple only. Now the theory is attached to that couple. To universalize the theory, to make it universal, you have to go and check all the same procedure you have to do again and again and again and again. Okay, to develop a universal theory. So I think you guys know how a psychologist think and how simple it is to think like psychologist, but how complicated it is to practice how a psychologist think. Thank you. That's all from my side for this video. That's all for today's session, guys. We'll meet in the next video. Thank you so much for